Class on, we're going to talk about Sanat Kumara, who is called the Lord of the World. And he's often called the planetary logos, also quite often known as the head of the council chamber in Shambhala. Um, so, so many are familiar with this quote about his origin. It has been stated that 104 Kumuras came from Venus to the Earth. Literally, the figure is 105, and synthesizing the Lord himself is counted as one. Okay, so he came here 18 million years ago with 105 very advanced beings to start things going, to create self-consciousness in the human units here and to really get things going. Does anyone know the reason he came here? The reason he wanted to do this? What if he did not come here with these 144 Kumaras? What would have happened?
We'd still be living in a pretty primitive state.
That's exactly right. He saw that the humanity was progressing just really slow. They were like kind of half animal and half human at that point. And he decided that he wanted to help them out. So his reason for coming here was really quite praiseworthy, except not all the units in the solar system agreed with this process because they thought it may be too risky. Because if humanity advanced too fast, we may wind up developing technology that could blow up the whole Earth and destroy everything. So that's the risk. So he was willing to take the risk, whereas other great entities in the solar system of other sacred planets were not willing to take the risk. But he felt sorry for us backward humans. And DK tells us that if he did not take this initiative to stimulate the self-consciousness and the minds of the human units, that the most advanced entities on the earth now would be like the Australian Bushmen or something like that. You know, we'd still be in a very primitive state. If we were to progress without assistance, our progression would be very slow. It would take us many millions of years to get to where we are now. But on the other hand, the argument was that it would be a lot safer to take the slow route, because if we took the slow route, we would we would not be in danger of blowing ourselves up with nuclear type weapons and that type of thing, or maybe other lethal weapons that could destroy humanity. But he felt sorry for us, and so he came and decided to assist. And this is one of the reasons he was called the divine rebel. Matter of fact, Adam put together a video about him being the divine rebel. And so I think we've already watched it once, but not everybody's seen it. So I think I'll show it again if you guys don't mind. Hmm. I think it's this one. Yeah. Oh, I'll have to start over because I didn't put the sound on. Just a minute.
The story of God has more layers and complexity than human minds presently comprehend. And even that which we know or believe we know is a story that can only be revealed and understood as we draw closer to our originating source. One motif, which repeats in the cycles of time and space, is that of God and the prodigal journey. God and all creations of God are prodigal sons and daughters. We are apt to think of the prodigal journey in terms of its separative, rebellious, and selfish modality, wherein the pilgrim ventures into the world of experience and material conquest to appease the sentient nature with little or no regard to consequence. Then, realizing that matter and indulgent behavior cannot satisfy his soul, the sober pilgrim returns home seeking order, discipline, and meaning and mercy from the Father. The parable of the prodigal son, as told by Jesus, embodies the sinner's tale from descent into material living before a return home to the Father, as a metaphor for a return to heaven and a spiritually directed life. We have glimpses of the prodigal descent in other biblical stories, such as the war in heaven, related in the book of Revelation, and Eve partaking of the fruit in the Garden of Eden. By contrast, we have the mythic labors of Hercules, which primarily demonstrate the pilgrim's attempt to return to spirit or heaven. But there are also ambiguous depictions of prodigal acts, wherein the descent and return are seemingly simultaneous acts that blur black and white morality, such as Prometheus stealing fire from the gods in compassionate service to humanity. Likewise, the tale of Robin Hood emotes ambivalent feelings in its readers as we observe the bandit behaving criminally, though in an effort to ease the suffering of his kinspeople. The heroes and anti-heroes of our modern literature and film co-opt the prodigal experience similarly. Bruce Wayne, as the charismatic playboy, plays an intentional foil to his alter ego, Batman, fighting criminals from the shadows, though maligned and misunderstood by people he seeks to liberate. This ambiguity may be closer to the truth of our prodigal existence. The ancient wisdom suggests that the prodigal experience is something all souls have done repeatedly during a much longer journey that spans time, space, and beyond. The mere fact that we have separated from our higher selves to have experience and play the games of life is by its very act a manifestation of our prodigal nature. We have evolved into matter and must extract ourselves from the depths of form and experience by evolving back to spirit and our true source. As we are reflections of the one source, the wisdom of the ages infers that God, or that universal source, likewise involves and evolves, exhibiting the prodigal journey on a grander scale. One such journey within this great universal experience involves the current evolution of planet Earth. Each planet is governed by a hierarchy of godlike beings who have passed through and mastered the human realms. Some are very high masters from our perspective, though from a larger point of view, they are simply our soul brothers and sisters who have traveled further upon the path of life and mastered the material aspects of which we ourselves are now endeavoring to master. The primary Logos, God of our planet, is sometimes referred to as a heavenly man, or the Lord of the world, or the one in whom we live and move and have our being. He is more specifically referred to as the Ancient of Days, or Sanat Kumara, in the ancient texts. This planetary Logos has long since mastered the human condition and passed initiations that humanity can little understand in the cosmic scheme. He wields the plan and purpose of the one universal God for this tiny planet we call Earth. He directs the energies of the planet while scrupulously respecting and reverencing the free will of humankind, for it is ultimately up to humanity to cooperate with the hierarchy and bring to pass major elements of the plan on this physical plane. But even the logoi of planets and the larger cosmos have freedom to choose and manifest the plan of God as they decide. They play the game with us, though with much greater vision and experience. Still, from their elevated perspective, they are bringing to fulfillment the plan as best they understand or dare, often experimenting with the unfoldment of planetary, solar, and cosmic evolution. According to the ancient wisdom, Sanat Kumara is considered somewhat of a rebel planetary god. Of course, a rebel at this level of consciousness is different from what mortals might consider a rebel. The teachings of the Tibetan master Djwhal Khul, as conveyed through the writings of Alice A. Bailey, state, "In every grouping, whether in heaven or on earth, there is always evidenced a tendency by some units in the group to revolt, to rebel, and to show some form of initiative different to that of the other units in the same grouping. When our solar universe came into being, we are told in the allegorical language of the ancient scriptures, there was war in heaven. the Son and his 7 brothers did not function with true unanimity. Remember that evil is relative to consciousness and evolution. We do not expect wild animals to assimilate to human behavior in an ordered society. In the same way, the higher God-evolved souls do not expect humanity to behave with all the godliness that has been achieved in the higher realms, though they work to inspire us to greater heights, which is our ultimate destiny. So rebellion manifests at different levels, but it pervades all existence. Some rebellions are significant and some less so, though always relative to the consciousness of the perceiver. As we evolve, our angle of vision increases and our perception of what is evil is continually adjusted to higher light and truth. Remember this statement previously quoted from the ancient wisdom: whether in heaven or on earth, there is always evidenced a tendency by some units in the group to revolt, to rebel, and to show some form of initiative different to that of the other units in the same grouping. We are truly free to choose and initiate different paths and to experiment with our evolution. Some decisions may be considered unorthodox or uncharted territory when compared to the evolution that has occurred before. One such instance is that of Sanat Kumara, our present planetary logos for Earth. Of him, the ancient wisdom states, "The great stream of living energy, which is manifesting itself in our Earth scheme of evolution, is conditioned by a temperament, an attitude, and an orientation that is that of a divine rebel. It is only rebellion that produces pain and sorrow, but this rebellion is inherent and innate in the deity of our planet himself, the one in whom we live and move and have our being. It is therefore a tendency greater than the individual unit." What was the decision by Sanat Kumara that resulted in such pain and suffering, hinting at his so-called rebellion from the usual path? Again, the esoteric teachings give us a glimpse. The decision of the planetary logos to take a physical vehicle produced an extraordinary stimulation in the evolutionary process, and by his incarnation and the methods of force distribution he employed, he brought about in a brief cycle of time what would otherwise have been inconceivably slow. The germ of mind in animal man was stimulated, the fourfold lower man was coordinated and stimulated, and became a fit receptacle for the coming in of the self-conscious entities, those spiritual triads, the reflection of spiritual will, intuition or wisdom and higher mind, who had for long ages been waiting for just such a fitting. The fourth, or human kingdom, came thus into being, and the self-conscious or rational unit man began his career. Thus we see the initiative that the God of this world undertook. His rebellion was one of compassionate service to humanity, but with a known risk. He sought to evolve and stimulate humanity far sooner than normal unfoldment takes place. He is gambling, to use a crude metaphor, that this risk can yield results, and that humanity and the hierarchy may be equal to the challenge. It is something to consider the journey of souls in the history of our planet Earth. Perhaps as we consider our own state of existence, we might take comfort knowing that beings much more evolved, including the Logos of Earth, have taken a similar path, passing through the pain and sorrow before achieving light, love, unity, and the divine return to our actual source, wherein lies the good, the beautiful, and the true.
Okay, my friends, good job on that, Adam. What you gonna be working on next?
Christ and Jesus are two different beings, and then you wanted me to do one on Jesus being a Lucifer. So we'll do those two next.
Yeah, for those that may be watching that, Lucifer means morning star, and the declaration in the book of Revelation, Jesus says, "I am the bright and morning star," which is the same as saying, "I am a Lucifer." But the interesting part about that is that Lucifer means light bringer, but what's the name that we apply to Satan? We call him the Prince of Light or Prince of something else?
Darkness.
Prince of darkness. Yeah, he's not the Prince of light. Yet Lucifer name means light bringer. Lucifer is just one of the morning stars, but one of the morning stars, according to the legend, fell and become the bad guy, so to speak. So, but there's many morning stars, and so the entity that fell was just one of the many morning stars. In the book of Job, it talks about the creation of the earth, and when the foundations were laid, the morning stars sang together, and all the morning stars rejoiced, and all the sons of God sang together, something like that. You see, the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God rejoiced, or something like that. I used to have that memorized correctly. But anyway, the morning stars and sons of God are the same thing, but the legend is one fell from grace, so to speak. So anyway, yeah, that would be an interesting one. So anyway, any comments about the rebel god that is over this planet?
Well, another story that more or less looks at this from the different angle is a story in the Book of Enoch, I believe it's called, where the Anunnaki come to give mind to humanity.
Yeah, they're not called the Anunnaki. Where are they? Are they called something else in the Book of Enoch? I know what the
Well, I don't know what they're called, but then some call them the solar Petries.
Yeah, yeah.
The Nephilims.
That's what the Bible calls them. The Nephilim is suspected. Okay. Yeah, the Anunnaki there from the ancient Sumerian texts talks about the legend of the Anunnaki that came here and engineered Earth people to mine for gold, which I really wonder about that, because if they were advanced enough to interstellar space flight and all this type of stuff, why couldn't they just make a bunch of artificial intelligent robots to do their mining? Why did they have to use humans? But
why is a futile question?
Yeah. So anyway, the story presented by DK here tells us that the logos that's over this planet is a divine rebel of sorts, that he didn't go along with everything as planned in our solar system, and he explains that this is why there is pain in this Earth realm, because the logos that's over this Earth scheme has a plan of his own to some degree, which he believes will end in harmony with everything and speed up everything, but it's a little bit different than the solar logos had in mind. And this affects 3 planets: Mars, Earth, and Saturn. And what's interesting, it tells us that he is actually a logos over not this Earth, so to speak. This is not his original point of being a logos. He came here during, it says, the second globe of the Earth, and but he incarnated during the 4th globe, which is the globe we're on now. This 4th globe is the planet that we are on now. The earlier globes were, you could call them spiritual planets, so to speak, because they were not composed of earthly matter. So anyway, these the Tibetan indicates that he is actually, his home planet would actually be Saturn rather than this Earth. It says it's another planet, but he doesn't name it. but it would most obviously be Saturn, because Saturn, he explains, is also a planet that experiences pain. And but there's only three: the Earth, Mars, and Saturn are very closely linked in a triangle, because pain is possible on all three of these, because they are all controlled apparently by our Logos, who is in somewhat of a state of rebellion, but for a benevolent purpose. But his rebellion, his disagreement really started earlier than working with man. It started at the beginning of the solar system itself. And here the Tibetan explains how this happened. He says this: the great stream of living energy, which is manifesting itself in our Earth scheme of evolution, is conditioned by a temperament, an attitude, and orientation that is that of the divine rebel. It is only rebellion that produces pain and sorrow. But this rebellion is inherent and innate in the deity of our planet itself, the one in whom we live and move and have our being. It is therefore a tendency greater than the individual unit. It is only possible to express this amazing truth about the planetary life under the veil of symbology and in terms of human thought. In this, there is ever a risk, for men interpret all they read and hear and experience in terms of themselves. And then he quotes about from what he calls the old commentary about kind of the beginning of this rebellious streak. He says this, it's pretty deep but interesting. He, meaning Sanat Kumara, entered into life and knew it to be death. He took a form and grieved to find it dark. He drove himself forth from the secret place and sought the place of light, and light revealed all that he sought the least. He craved permission to return. And the story is that, in the previous solar system, we developed the third ray energy, which is intelligence and matter. And during that whole solar system, we developed a lot of intelligence and perfection of matter. And there were quite a number that wanted to take the essence of that and develop it to a greater extent. And I think this is probably what this great entity wanted to do. And when he did, he says he entered into life and knew it to be death. And then he regretted it, and then he craved permission to return. He says, okay, I'm following this path and I don't like it, so I want to go back. And then he sought the throne on high, and him that sat thereon, he said, I sought not this. I looked for peace, for light, for scope to serve, to prove my love, and to reveal my power. Light there is none, peace is not found, let me return. So he had good purposes. He said he sought for peace, for light, and to serve, and to prove his love to the Most High, and it didn't work out. And so he sought to return. But he that sat upon the throne turned not his head. He seemed to not even listen nor to hear. But from the lower sphere of darkness and of pain, a voice came forth and cried, we suffer here. We seek the light. We need the glory of an entering God. And DK says, I can find no other words to express this. And then these voices says, lift us to heaven. Enter, O Lord, the tomb. Raise us into the light and make the sacrifice. Break down for us the prison wall and enter into pain. So here was Sanat Kumara. He was in this situation. He made a mistake, so to speak. He entered into this darkness to try to actually make things better. And he tried to return. He said, no, you can't return. And because these voices are crying out, we suffer here. We need the light. We need an entering God to help us out. And that was people like you and me. We were demanding, we're caught in this situation too, where we're in this material sphere and we need somebody to pull us up. And this is where he made the decision. Now these people are in all these entities are in this situation where it's going to take them millions of years to progress. I can speed up their return. I can help them. And so it ends with this line: the Lord of life returned. He liked it not, and hence the pain. So he decided to help us. He's committed, it says, until the last weary pilgrim makes its way home. He turned, another passage says he turned his face away from the solar logos and become a light to those that were in darkness. And he made the commitment to help us until the work is done and we can all enter into the great pralaya or peace together. But this is kind of an interesting statement it ended with: he liked it not, and hence the pain. In other words, the work was very difficult for him, and he experienced pain. And because he experienced pain and he's the logos, that pain is shared by us. And so we live on a planet where there can be quite a bit of discomfort and pain and distress here. But we also have the advantage that produces a tremendous opportunity for growth. Any comment on that?
I have a question, JJ.
Yeah.
So if before he came along, we were living on this planet in a backward situation with no light, so to speak, would we have not also been in pain then? Especially after seeing the light?
We'd have the consciousness of, well, back then, we had the legend of the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, there was really no pain. Everything was taken care of. And so in a primitive state, we didn't register pain the way we do now. When we become self-conscious, you obtain more of you're guided a lot more by your memory. And your memory, because of our memory, it makes us worry about the future. But you look at an animal has no worries about the future. It's only concerned about the present. If it's getting fed right now, it has no pain at all. And also in the ancient times, the earth was a little bit more like the Garden of Eden. You had perhaps all the produce or food you needed without doing a lot of work. And there probably wasn't a lot of pain registered by the entities back then. But the pain it talks about would still affect the ones before he arrived, because this pain that talks about here happened even before the earth was created that we are on now. So this the earth scheme, what he calls the earth scheme, is composed of 49 different planets, and all of them are subject to pain and all their degrees. So what he calls a solar system is not just the sun with 8 planets, but it's but this Earth is only one out of 49 different creations that compose the whole of the solar system in all of its creations and reincarnations in this scheme of things. And so the pain lasts for a long time, but we're kind of in the apex of it. We're right in the middle of the creative endeavors of this solar system. And so that's why there's so much pain in the earth right now, is because we're at that point of tension where we're going from descent to ascent. And as we ascend, pain will decrease. So, but when we got self-consciousness, which he came here 18 million years ago and stimulated self-consciousness in humans. And that increased our pain, because probably over half the pain we experience is because of worry. And if we had no memory, or if we just put our attention on the present, there wouldn't be anything to worry about. Like I say, with an animal, if an animal has enough to eat right now, it doesn't worry about tomorrow. It's just happy right now. Have you noticed that with your pets, when you feed your pets? I mean, they're just happy as can be when they're eating, as if they're going to have enough food forever. But when we eat, we may think, boy, I'm not sure if I got enough for groceries next week. Then you spend a lot of time worrying because of our self-consciousness. Our self-consciousness and free will intensifies our ability to experience pain, the range of pain, and creates problems but it's a problem that we wouldn't throw away. We want that so that we can solve the problems and negate the pain and eventually achieve, despite the problems that we have. Okay, good comment. Anything else on that?
So if you go back to the analogy of the animal, so to speak, they do experience pain to some degree, but what the pain you're just talking about is a different type of pain, so to speak.
Yeah, the animals experience pain because this, even before humans existed on this planet, there was pain, because this has been a world of pain from the beginning, but it was just intensified when he came here. Now, there's other planets like Venus, Jupiter, Neptune are not planets of pain. So any life forms that exist on them or their other spheres do not experience pain to any significant degree. But we do in 3 different planets. And keep in mind that, like even Mars, even though there's no life we know of on the surface, what we see is just the 4th globe of Mars. There is a 5th, 6th, 7th, and 1, 2, 3. And some of those other globes do have life upon them. But the one that we see, we don't know if there's any life there or not yet. Might be life underneath the surface somewhere. But so anyway, that's interesting. Pain, he says, is caused by resistance to spirit, and the impressions from the soul produce pain. And so the Solar Logos had a plan, and he wanted to deviate a little bit from it. And that deviation caused this earth to be a place where pain would exist. And we have to solve the problem of pain and negate it and return to our source. We are the prodigal son. And the story of the prodigal son was, he lived with the father and everything was cool and didn't have any problems. He had everything he wanted. And that wasn't enough. He wanted to take his inheritance, go out into the world He went out in the world and began to experience a lot of pain and discomfort and famine and all kinds of things. And then he decided he wanted to return to the Father. And this prodigal son is the story of all of us, including Sanat Kumara, including even Jesus.
I think it goes back even further than that. The first prodigal act was separating from the one God before time and space, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's another story, but that's true. It's been around. That story of the prodigal son has been around for a long time. Okay, we reached the end of our time. Any other comments anyone wants to make? So everybody pretty much negated all the pain, so you just have a pleasant life ahead of you. Maria is having a pretty pleasant life, it looks like. That's funny when you say that to people, because when you really start talking to people, you find out that almost everybody has all the problems in life that they can handle, and they don't want any more. Yet most people do not want to trade their problems for anybody else's. They just as soon keep their own. So we're kind of a funny lot, us humans.
I think it's all on how you name it. You could call it a problem, or you can call it an opportunity.
Yeah, your attitude, it means a lot in life. If you have a good attitude, you can handle a lot of things. If you have a bad attitude, well, you're just going to have more and more pain. So we might as well start out with a good attitude. Ed must have a pretty good attitude. He's 104 years old and still looks like he's less than 80.
Yeah, I'm a 2,000-year-old man.
Yeah. Okay, my friends, really good to meet with you, and we will see you next Sunday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, all being well.
Thank you, JJ.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you all. Take care.